resident, Department of General Medicine from Sree Balaji Medical College and Hospital. I am a consultant physician and diabetologist. I completed CPC DM accredited by RSSDI. I have 2 publications. I am going to talk about Bell's palsy. Before going to the topic of Bell's palsy, let us discuss about the facial nerve anatomy. Facial nerve anatomy, it runs from pons to parotid. It is a mixed nerve composing of motor and sensory root. It also carries secretomotor fibers to lacrimal gland, salivary gland, taste and general sensation of face. Motor nucleus of the nerve is situated in the pons. It receives fibers from the precentral gyrus. Motor fibers takes origin from the nucleus of 7th nerve. Facial nerve leaves the brainstem at the pontomedullary junction. Facial nerve travels through posterior cranial fossa and enters the internal acoustic meatus. At the lateral part of the meatus, the nerve enters the facial canal. Then it traverses the temporal bone and comes out of the stylomastoid foramen. After crossing styloid process, it forms 2 divisions, upper temporofacial and lower cervicofacial, which further divides into smaller branches, temporal branch, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular and cervical branch. This altogether forms pes anserinus, which means goose feet in Latin. They all supply the muscles of facial expressions. Coming to the causes of facial paralysis, the cause may be central or peripheral. Peripheral lesion may involve the nerve in its intracranial, intratemporal or extratemporal parts. Peripheral lesions are more common and about 2/3 of them are of the idiopathic variety. Coming to the peripheral facial palsy etiology, in intracranial part we have acoustic neuroma, meningioma, meningitis and metastatic carcinoma. In intratemporal part, the most common cause is Bell's palsy, Michelson syndrome, infections like otitis media, Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, trauma like due to surgical or accidental in case of temporal bone fractures, and neoplasm in the form of facial nerve neuroma and glomus tumor. In extracranial part, we have malignancy or surgery of the parotid gland can cause Bell's palsy. Systemic causes of Bell's palsy are diabetes mellitus, hypothyroidism, leprosy and sarcoidosis. Coming to Bell's palsy, it is defined as idiopathic peripheral facial paralysis or paralysis of acute onset. 60 to 75 cases of the facial paralysis is due to Bell's palsy. Risk factors are diabetes due to angiopathy and pregnant women due to retention of the fluid. Most common cause of Bell's palsy is viral infection due to herpes simplex, herpes zoster or Epstein-Barr virus. Other cranial nerves may also get involved in Bell's palsy, which is thus considered a part of the picture of polyneuropathy. The other cause of Bell's palsy is vascular ischemia. It may be primary or secondary. Primary ischemia is induced by cold or emotional stress. Secondary ischemia is a result of primary ischemia, which causes increased capillary permeability leading to exudation of fluid, edema and compression of microcirculation of the nerve. Hereditary causes of Bell's palsy. The facial canal is narrow because of hereditary predisposition. This makes the nerve susceptible to early compression within the slightest edema. 10% of Bell's palsy have a positive family history. Autoimmune disorder causing Bell's palsy like Sjogren syndrome. Clinical features: the onset is sudden, face becomes asymmetrical, patient is unable to close the eyes. On attempting to close the eyes, eyeball turns up and out called the Bell's phenomenon. Saliva dribbles from the angle of mouth. Epiphora: tears flow down from the eyes. Saliva dribbles from the angle of mouth. Pain in the ear may precede or accompany the nerve paralysis. Paralysis may be complete or incomplete. Bell's palsy is recurrent in 3 to 10% of patients. Other features depending on the site of lesion are: the lesion lies above the greater petrosal nerve, causes loss of lacrimation along with the following signs. Lesion lies above the nerve to stapedius, produces hyperacusis with the following signs. Lesion lies proximal to the cauda tympani, produces loss of taste and secretomotor function along with the motor signs. Lesions at or near the stylomastoid foramen produces facial muscle paralysis. Diagnosis is always by exclusion. Otoscopic examination to rule out vesicles or otitis media. Neurological examination can be done to rule out UMN lesion which have forehead sparring. Exclude other peripheral causes of Bell's palsy. Other investigations like blood glucose, Lyme serology, HIV, varicella zoster virus serology can be done in suspected cases. MRI brain or MRI internal acoustic meatus can be done in case of bilateral presentation, recurrent or gradual onset of the presentation. In EMG, if nerve degeneration is more than 90%, that means the poor outcome of the disease. Topo diagnosis can be helps us to localizing the site of lesion and for nerve decompression. Treatment, we have to assure the patient that most of them recover completely. Treatment, general measures, reassurance the patient mostly recover completely. Eye care by giving artificial tears, eye patch at night, analgesics, physiotherapy, massage of the facial muscles gives psychological support to the patients. Medical management, corticosteroids plays a major role. Prednisolone can be given at the dose of 1 mg per kg per day for 5 days, which is taper over for the next 5 days. Antivirals can be combined with the steroids for herpes zoster oticus. The drug of choice here is acyclovir 400 mg 5 times daily or val acyclovir 1 gram thrice daily for 7 days. Prognosis, 85 to 90% of the patient recover fully. 10 to 15% recover incompletely and may be left with some stigmata of degeneration. Recurrent facial palsy may not recover fully. Prognosis is good in incomplete Bell's palsy. Complications, exposure keratitis, synkinesis, crocodile tears and Frey's syndrome. Coming to the topic of facial pain. Facial pain is a common symptom encountered in neurology, dentistry and ENT practice. It may arise from various structures like skin, mucosa, teeth, sinus, nerves or blood vessels. Among all, trigeminal neuralgia is the most common classic type of facial pain. Classification of facial pain, neurologic pain, for example, trigeminal or glossopharyngeal neuralgia, musculoskeletal pain like temporomandibular joint disorders, sinogenic pain related to sinusitis, dental or oral pain related to caries, pulpitis, abscess, ocular or eye pain due to local pathology, psychogenic pain like atypical facial pain. Coming to maxillary sinusitis, acute sinusitis may present as pain in the region of the upper molar teeth which may tend to percussion. Chronic sinusitis can result from infection, allergy or airway abnormality. It is often characteristic by nasal obstruction, nasal discharge, malaise or halitosis. Diffuse pain in the malar region associated with frontal headache and tenderness over the sinus and upper molar teeth. It may be aggravated by running or bending over. Sinusitis can be a sequelae to dental pulpitis of an upper molar if periapical infection spreads to the floor of the sinus. It can be managed with antibiotics or tooth extraction. Coming to glossopharyngeal neuralgia, an uncommon condition producing severe lancing pain in the oropharynx or base of the tongue. Glossopharyngeal neuralgia should be considered if a sharp pain occurs during swallowing. It frequently responds to administration of carbamazepine. Facial migraine. Uncommonly, migraine can be present with prodromal symptoms followed by pain in the periorbital region which may diffuse to the cheek and mandible. It can be managed like for a typical migraine. Facial migraine. Uncommonly, migraine may present with prodromal symptoms followed by pain in the periorbital region which may diffuse to the cheek and mandible. Management is as for typical migraine. Post-herpetic neuralgia, it is defined as pain persisting for more than 90 days after onset of herpes zoster rash. Risk factors include older age, more than 60 years, immunocompromised state, involvement of trigeminal or ophthalmic branch. Gabapentin and tricyclic antidepressants are the first-line treatment. Regional nerve block is effective in refractory cases. Coming to temporomandibular joint dysfunction, it is defined as pain with the mandibular movements, particularly when eating. Clenching may also produce pain and tenderness in the muscles of mastication. It can be associated with restricted jaw movements, tenderness over the joint, crepitus or clicking during mandibular movements. TMD should be treated conservatively by resting the joint, application of heat and use of simple analgesia. Patient should be referred for dental assessment if there is no response to the conservative treatment. Coming to multiple sclerosis, this demyelinating disease may mimic trigeminal neuralgia and cause intermittent lancing facial pain. It should always be considered, particularly in a younger adult who has other neurological deficit. MRI is usually diagnostic in this condition. Next is giant cell arteritis. It may present as claudication when chewing, together with a constant unilateral headache and diffuse pain around the ear. Tenderness over superficial temporal artery is present along with the raised ESR. It can be managed with prednisolone 60 mg daily. With this, we come to the end of the session. We'll get back to you later with more interesting topics.